MMA has risen to become one of the most watched sports in the world. This, of course, has turned the UFC into a billion-dollar promotion company. Naturally, this has made the fighters richer. With the immense popularity of some of these fighters and the increase in the pay-per-view buys of these UFC matches, MMA fighters are recording large payouts after each match. However, in spite of the large payouts the MMA records, it is still seen by some as a playful venture rather than a real sport. For instance, the International Olympic Committee has failed to recognize the sport and give it a category in the Olympic Games. Interestingly, if the Olympics gives the sport the recognition it deserves and makes it an Olympic-sanctioned event, it is surely going to bring in more money for the UFC and, of course, the fighters. Ever wondered who the richest MMA fighters are? Let's find out together in this video as we look at the richest MMA fighters in 2020. Ready? Let's go. Rashad Evans. Even though Rashad Evans is retired, he surely deserves a place on this list. In 2019, he was inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame. He fought in the UFC between 2003 and 2018, where he was the Ultimate Fighter 2 heavyweight champion and the UFC light heavyweight champion. Throughout his career, he completed a total of 28 fights, of which he won 19. Even though he retired in 2018, Rashad Evans still making the big bucks. As of 2020, the former fighter was worth $8.5 billion. Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo is no doubt one of the most popular fighters in the UFC. His ability to incorporate leg kicks and Muay Thai into his fights had made him into one of the most dangerous fighters in the ring. Out of 28 UFC fights, the fighter has managed to deliver 17 knockouts to his opponent. He has also fought some of the biggest names, including Conor McGregor, Max Holloway, and Peter Yan. Even though he lost to these three individuals, his unique way of fighting has earned him the final WEC Featherweight Championship and the UFC Featherweight Championship, of which he's won a total of 3 times. A 2-time undisputed champion, Jose Aldo was worth around $9 million in 2020. Junior Dos Santos. Junior Dos Santos is extremely dangerous in the ring. He is one of the very few fighters who have defeated 5 heavyweight champions in the past. He's defeated Gilbert Yvel, Mirko Filipic, and even Fabricio Verdum, who has been consistently ranked in the top 5 heavyweights. Dos Santos is a 1-time UFC heavyweight champion, and he's won 21 times out of 28 fights. In 2020, Sagano was worth about $10 billion. Jon Jones. Let's take a moment to forget all of Jon Jones's controversies and agree that he is one of the best and most recognized fighters in the UFC. Critics who have managed to look past his behavior have mentioned that he would surely go down in history as one of the best fighters. Come on, he's only been defeated once in MMA. From March 2011 to April 2015, Jones was the light heavyweight champion, a title he would go on to grab again in 2018. The fighter again defended his title since 2018, just like he did in 2011. However, it's not always been rosy for Jon Jones. Between 2015 and 2017, Jones had been involved in a number of unforgettable controversies, and the disciplinary committee ridded him of his title. At first, it was just his title, but later on, they removed him from all official UFC rankings. This happened right after his arrest for hit-and-run charges. Fortunately, things have changed for Jon Jones. Today, he currently tops the MMA men's pound-for-pound list and still maintains just that single defeat via disqualification in MMA. He also makes the big bucks, being worth approximately $10 million in 2020. Frank Mir. Frank Mir is still an active MMA fighter, but he no longer fights in the UFC, where the most popular fighters are found. He fought for 16 years in the UFC and currently still holds the record for the most submission victories ever recorded in the UFC. He also set a record for having the longest win streak in the UFC and was the light heavyweight champion once before he left. However, Frank choosing to leave the UFC did not affect his wealth in any way. The fighter is still getting big bucks and is currently estimated to be worth around $11 million. Ronda Rousey. One of the richest MMA fighters in the world, Rowdy Ronda Rousey was the first woman to win the UFC Women's Bantamweight Championship. She'd go on to defend this title 6 times, only to lose and retire. Interestingly, Ronda Rousey now fights in the WWE. Ronda was fascinating in the UFC, constantly captivating the hearts of her fans with her instinctive fight patterns. She was finally inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame in 2018, becoming the first woman to achieve that feat. As of 2020, the fighter was worth around $12 million. Tito Ortiz. What would the sport of MMA be without Tito Ortiz? Tito is one of the earliest stars of MMA, fighting with the the company Combat Americas, and he still fights today. He's widely regarded as one of the fighters who turned MMA into a popular mainstream sport. He also fought in the UFC, where he won the UFC Light Heavyweight Championship. As of 2020, Tito is worth around $12 million. Vanderlei Silva, popularly known among fans as the Axe and the Mad Dog, Silva is one of the leading MMA fighters in the world today. He has fought in several MMA promotion companies over the years, and he's even managed to leave an astounding reputation in every single one of them. In almost every promotion company he fought in, he has established himself as a leader, a top-tier fighter who records the most title defenses, wins, and knockouts. Starting out with Pride Fighting Championships, Silva now fights for Bellator MMA and is currently worth over $18 million. Fedor Emelianenko, another fighter currently fighting for Bellator MMA. Fedor Emelianenko is one of the most renowned figures in MMA. The Russian fighter has established himself as one of the greatest fighters in the history of the sport, breaking records in several promotion companies. To date, his stint with MMA's Pride Fighting is regarded as one of his best, where he won the heavyweight championship and held on to it from 2003 to 2007. Fedor isn't just a beast in MMA, he's also won titles in sports like judo. In 2020, Fedor's net worth stood around $18 million. Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva is so popular that even individuals who don't watch MMA fights are familiar with his name. He is one of the best in the game and no doubt one of the most dangerous. The Brazilian MMA fighter still holds the record for having the longest reign in the UFC, holding onto the UFC middleweight title for a total of 2,457 days. The Spider in the most recent UFC middleweight rankings was placed at number 15 and is currently worth around $18 million. BJ Penn. Several fighters in MMA have cited Penn as the most dangerous fighter they have encountered in the ring. George St. Pierre is widely regarded as one of the best fighters in the history of MMA, but he admitted in his fight with Penn, quote, "The toughest and the strongest individual I've ever faced in the octagon is Bisping. The toughest fighter skill-wise I've ever faced is BJ Penn." BJ Penn in his prime was so technically powerful. Penn is highly talented, and it didn't come as a surprise when he was inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame in 2015. The Prodigy is also one of 7 fighters in the history of the UFC who have won titles in various weight divisions. He's won the UFC Lightweight Championship, the Welterweight Championship, and the UFC 41 Lightweight Tournament. In 2020, Penn's net worth was estimated to be around $22 million, making him break into the top 5 richest MMA fighters in the world. Brock Lesnar. It's quite sad that in spite of Lesnar's impressive MMA records, which includes a UFC Heavyweight Championship in 2008, he is known better for his pro wrestling career and his WWE stints. However, he is also a successful pro wrestler, being the only fighter to have won a UFC title and also a WWE title. Brock is valued to be worth around $28 million in 2020, making him the 4th richest fighter in the history of MMA. Georges St. Pierre. If we say Georges St. Pierre is the best fighter in the history of the sport, only a few individuals will argue this. Whether we agree on that or not, we can all at least agree that he is one of the greatest fighters in the history of the sport. He has regularly emerged as the UFC middleweight and welterweight champion. He's currently worth around $30 million. Khabib Nurmagomedov. Khabib Nurmagomedov is technically retired at the moment, but we have reasons to believe that he could be returning to the octagon sometime soon. Khabib has also been regarded as one of the best in the game, even defeating Conor McGregor to defend his title and retiring undefeated. Khabib takes his pride in his Russian nationality and even used it against Conor when they were about to fight. He said, quote, "After this fight, I have to fight for the title. UFC thinks Conor has power. Irish people only like 6 million people. I am from Russia, 150 million people. If UFC doesn't give me the title fight after this fight, I'm going to show how I have power in Russia. I know if I don't fight for the title next fight, UFC will never, ever go to Russia." He's currently valued around $30 million. Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor does not need to be introduced. He is that one fighter that is known by everyone, and this includes individuals who have never seen an MMA fight. He has no bounds. He's an all-around fascinating individual. It's no surprise that he is the richest MMA fighter, as he's tried his hands in several companies and a number of ambassadorial deals. He has also tried his hands in boxing, where he faced boxing legend Floyd Mayweather Jr. However, his fighting career hit a brick wall in 2021 as he lost his first fight of the year to Dustin Poirier. Fortunately, this had no effect on his net worth, as he is worth over $110 million, making him the richest MMA fighter in the world. Well, there you have it. Do you think we missed out on anyone? Tell us about it in the comment section below. And with that, we wrap up this video.